Hello everyone! Today I wanted to share with you something that's been under the wraps for a while now. 1 whole year to be exact. Now, I didn't want to say anything when this whole ordeal began because I thought it would be best for Misty's sake, who you'll find out about in just a second here, and our amazing team at the Silverglade Equestrian Center, which is the barn I am a co-owner of. This was in fact the SEC's first ever rescue mission, and it has been such a crazy journey. It's probably been one of the most rewarding experiences I've had in all of my horsey adventures, and I'm so grateful for everyone who supported this horse because the amount of resources and effort that went into getting her safe is incredible. But before I ramble on and on, I think it's about time I tell you about Misty's journey. And it all started here, when a good friend of mine texted me about something she had recently written about in the Jorvik Gazette, as she's one of the head journalists there. The article told the story of 12 horses found on the site of the infamous Deuce Farm, located in Milmer's Highland. From the pictures, you could see the horses were malnourished and neglected. The person responsible for this clearly did not have the resources or facilities to hold and care for this amount of animals. Situations like these don't happen often in Jorvik, so when they do, word usually gets out pretty quickly, and people don't hesitate to lend a helping hand. 6 of these horses were taken in by the Jorvik Horse Welfare Society, and soon after, 5 others were given homes by caring horse people around the island. That left one scared bay pinto mare unaccounted for. My friend, who's a journalist, sort of jokingly texted me, "Does your barn have room for one more?" And obviously, I did not take that as a joke, or I would not be making this video, and replied back, "I'll see what I can do," to which I then went out to see what I could do. It was super convenient to have a journalist friend through all this that knew exactly what was happening with the horses, and she told me that the pinto mare had been separated from the rest of the horses and temporarily relocated to south of farm until she could find a more permanent home. And this immediately gave me some serious deja vu.
Meet Autumn. She was supposedly a 3-year-old Jorvik warmblood standing at 16 hands high. I adopted her from the South Hoof Horse Rescue, and apparently she came in from a hoarding situation with 25 other horses.
This mare's circumstances were so similar to Autumn's when I first adopted her, and it seriously made me think of how much of a wonder horse Autumn has turned out to be. And at this point, I had my mind set on bringing her back to our barn. And sure enough, the next foggy morning, I set out to go and check her out. When I arrived, I spoke to the owner of the rescue, Dan, who's been managing this place since I had gotten Autumn, which feels like a century ago now. He told me about how he really wished he could keep the mare at the South of Rescue to rehabilitate, but they simply didn't have the space or resources for yet another horse. After he gave me the rundown on her situation, he took me to her stall. This had been my first time meeting her, and she was in pretty rough shape mentally and physically. At the time, the rescue did have a farrier out there, so some basic work had been done, and it was nice to know she trusted humans enough to allow people to get near her hooves. It also looked like they had been able to get rid of some of her mangled hair with a little haircut, but she still needed some serious work after everything she had gone through, which is when I decided I couldn't just leave her there. We did a vet check to see exactly what we were dealing with. She did seem a bit apprehensive at first, but nonetheless, she allowed us to check her out. The vet came to the conclusion that although she wasn't 100% sound, it wasn't anything we couldn't fix over time with some TLC. So, lucky for me, Dan knows me and how we care for our horses at the SEC and our training programs, so after filling out some forms, he gave us the green light to take her home. Before I left, I looked back at the beautiful landscape of South Hoof Farm and the misty-covered hills, and that's when I came to the conclusion that I had to name her Misty, in honor of the very misty morning we came to get her. Bringing her back home that very first day was a struggle. She had a lot of anxiety in the trailer and was constantly letting me know she wasn't too happy by whinnying and pawing at the floor. It was an especially stressful trip as, of course, we had to go on the ferry back. My only regret was not bringing her a companion with her during the travels to keep her more at ease. Misty's first week at the barn was all about getting her healthy and more trusting of us. That meant having to do some not exactly so fun things that she'd been overdue on. She had a dental exam where she got her teeth floated, and then we also had to get her dewormed. I had a nutritionist come out to discuss the best course of action with her feeding so she could gain and then maintain a healthy weight. And in order to do this, we planned to give her lots of foraging options throughout the day, which would primarily be alfalfa hay and a bit of timothy, and give plenty of grain. A week or so into her rescue, she was ready to have a regular turnout in the pasture. I wanted to put another horse that would be suitable with her in turnout, and I needed a horse that was gentle, kind, and brave to show her the ropes on how to be a horse. We came up with the perfect match, and that was Flamey, my at the time 26-year-old Connemara mare, who is my very first horse, and it was perfect. This was the first time they met, and they got on right away, and after a little introduction, they became besties. It helped Misty's confidence as she was pretty fearful of us, and Flamey showed her that it was okay. Another priority our team had that first month was to give her kind human interactions, something that it didn't seem like she had much of prior to coming to us. We took short walks in the sunshine every day. Sometimes we would do this out in the arena, and other times we would walk around outside the barn. I spent many mornings in the wash stall spending quality time with her. Grooming was such a fun way for us to bond, and during these short sessions I could see glimpses of some personality coming out, and she has a big personality. She was constantly up in my business, checking out what I was doing. She was so interested and curious about her surroundings. Oftentimes she would check something out, like putting her nose to it and then knock it over and scare herself. She was always the one putting her head out over the stall, especially during breakfast and dinner. One morning in particular, when I was feeding grain, she found a way to escape out of her stall and just went into the feed room to check out what I was doing. And that's how she got the nickname Houdini, because to this day I have no clue how she opened that stall by herself. After a while, I wanted to work with her on the ground, so I started doing basic things like lunging, teaching her how to properly lead, and how to flex and soften to pressure. That would translate to under saddle riding. We also did some jumping on the lunge line, and I learned how much scope she had, and it was really cool to see her potential. Training her proved pretty difficult because she was non-stop so aware of the environment around her, which made it a lot harder to train, as once we were making some progress, it would feel like she would stop and give up because there was something more interesting elsewhere. To keep up with her, I kept sessions short, positive, and interesting. I definitely had to change the way I train horses usually to match with her never-ending curiosity of the world. Later on, I felt like she was ready to start being desensitized to tack. I did this slowly and cautiously, but I quickly learned that she did not appreciate things being on her back. When I attempted to do this, she had some pretty big reactions. I tried to go back to groundwork and slow it down for her, but when I went back to desensitizing, nothing had improved. I was stuck. Now, I thought it had something to do with her past, possibly some trauma she had that I didn't know how to handle with her. I came to the conclusion that I would need more help than anything my personal knowledge could handle. It was hard for me to ask for help, but I had to realize that it's okay to not exactly know how to handle every horse's quirks and to reach out to someone who might. That's when I decided to board her at the Jorvik Stables training facility so she could get professional training with very experienced trainers. They have an incredible training program over there, and they sent me many updates, which I appreciated because Misty definitely left an absence at the SEC. She was looked after so well, her incredible trainers helped her learn so much. They sent me pictures of all of her firsts, like the first time they saddled her, the first time they got on her back, and the first time she walked, trotted, and cantered with a rider on her. I will never regret bringing her there because it allowed her to grow as a riding horse without the confusion and stress that I might have given her from not being able to give her what she needed to learn. Plus, it was just such a great experience for her. She even made some non-horsey friends while she stayed there. I visited her every week to come and check on her progress while she was away, and every time I came back, I was stunned to see how much she had grown from the last time. Near the end of her time at the Jorvik stables, I had the opportunity to ride her. It was tricky figuring out all her buttons in the beginning, but with the assistance of the amazing instructors, it came a lot easier. She was super responsive and had beautiful floaty gaits that only got better as she really found her feet and gained confidence. After nearly 3 months away, it was time for her big return to the equestrian center. We were all very excited to have her back in the barn. She had filled out so much since the last time she was home and was looking very happy and healthy. Misty was reunited with Flamey, and they were overjoyed to be with each other after those long months. They seriously had the cutest friendship. With Misty knowing the basics of undersaddle work, it was time for me to take the reins. We did lots of flat work to give her a really solid foundation. During these flat work exercises, she was very attentive, which was already such a big improvement from those several months ago when I was working with her. I found that she paid a lot more attention when she was doing something new and challenging. In between sessions, we would go on hacks around Silverglade, and on special occasions, I would haul her out around the island for a trail ride. At first, we tried doing some dressage, and it was just not for her. She seemed pretty impatient with it and was constantly getting frustrated. I was thinking about just pushing her through, but I came to the conclusion that just like people, certain things are just not some horse's niche. It was not something that made her happy or that she enjoyed, so I set out to find her passion. Then we tried jumping, and she loved it. I took her out to my friend's place, set up some jumps, and found out that she had some serious scope. I have never seen a horse so eager to go over a bunch of big colorful sticks in my life. Plus, she was good at it. She flew over those jumps with plenty of room to spare, and she did it with speed. The problem was not getting her to go over the jumps, it was getting her to slow down. Whenever we would enter the jumping arena, she immediately got a twinkle in her eye and perked up. This is when I decided, or should I say, she decided, she would be a show jumper. I took her to some beginner novice jumping shows, and she did incredible. With very limited experience in the show jumping world, I was very impressed with how well she did at these competitions. Over the next few months, we took home many ribbons, and we both grew and learned so much. She looked like a totally different horse compared to when we took her home that first day from the South Hoof Rescue. On one particularly memorable morning, I went out on a beach ride with Misty. We went out at sunrise to enjoy the beautiful shores of Golden Leaf. She was confident and not at all fearful like she had been months prior. This was the moment I knew that she was ready to find a loving person that would help her prosper and become an even better horse. I've made sale ads for my clients' horses in the past, but I've never actually had to make an ad for one of my personal horses, so this was entirely new for me and heartbreaking. To have seen her come so far in just a year, and then to let her go was very difficult for me, but even from the beginning, this had been the plan, as I simply do not have the time for another long-term commitment of a horse. Especially considering I already have 4 horses at the moment. Even still, it was hard for me to let her go, and 2 weeks after the ad was posted, I considered taking it down, as I hadn't found the perfect fit for her yet, and I kind of thought I never was going to. Of course, that was all before I met Mackenzie. She is the sweetest teenager who has a fiery passion for horses and reminded me so much of myself at her age. Mackenzie had big dreams and solid experience in the horse world, and wanted a horse that could take her places. And Misty was just the right fit for her. That weekend, she came to try her out, and they immediately clicked. Mackenzie had the bravery to go at Misty's pace, and Misty knew enough to guide her. Mackenzie rode Misty with a smile the whole time, and I knew that it was a match. And Mackenzie must have thought so too, because later that week, Misty took a trip to her new home at the Moorland Stables. Since then, Mackenzie and Misty have been successfully showing around Jorvik, bringing in all the blues at competitions, and they continue to be great partners for each other. And that was Misty's journey. I have loved getting to work with such an incredible horse from the start. It was definitely a roller coaster with plenty of highs and lows, but it was one I would ride again and again, because training a horse from the beginning and seeing such a huge transformation is one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had. Her owner keeps in touch with me to this day, and Mackenzie still updates me every now and then. She also comes to some of the SEC's clinics and lessons, so I'm still able to see her when she's over. I feel like I can confidently say she got her happy ending to a not so happy beginning. With that being said, that pretty much wraps it up on Misty's journey here at the Silverglade Equestrian Center, but her journey will no doubt continue on elsewhere. I really hope you all enjoyed this video, and let me know what you think of it down in the comments. Have an amazing day, and I will see you all next time. Bye everyone!